Are you there, Michelle?
I'm here.
All right. Well, Michelle, we're going to get the energy up now. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Can you grunt?
Can I grunt?
Oh! Yes! Oh, my goodness gracious. Welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show, everyone. My name is Chris Curran. Happy that you're here. This is the show where we really talk shop about podcast production. We bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. That's right. So I have a background in audio engineering in the music business. And since I entered podcasting about 9 years ago, I've noticed a huge lack of audio skills in the podcasting space. And that's where this show can really help. And if you implement the best of what you learn here, your shows will sound a lot better and you'll spend less time producing them. Oh man, what am I, going through puberty again? I'm telling you, Barry. So Barry's here with me. Barry, are you ready for Michelle Levitt? Oh yeah, baby, she's here. I'm going to introduce her in a second, but real quick, the next Podcast Engineering School program is happening in January 2021. Well, actually, this will come out after Black Friday, but anyway, planning on having a special deal. But so Michelle Levitt is here, everybody. Can you feel it? She's the creative marketing director at Heil. Heil Sound, I guess, is the technical name of the company, right, Michelle?
It is.
Heil Sound, yeah. And of course, Heil makes, the exalted PR40. They make the PR30 and a lot of other mics. We're going to talk about a bunch of them. But Michelle is also a podcast producer. She had her own podcast studio. She's done every role in podcasting that there is. And Michelle, you and I met at a lot of the events, actually, over the past 5 years, and we've just been friends and talking. But this is the first time you're coming on the show. So everybody welcome Michelle Levitt. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It's so great to finally be here.
Oh, yeah. We had we'll talk about the little setup issue we had going forward, which is not uncommon when you use you start connecting various audio equipment and video equipment together, and there's likely to be feedback and there's likely to be some issues. But real quick, I wanted to tell you, Michelle, on the next week's episode, which is a Daily Goody episode, which is where I talk about 6 or 8 of the blog posts that I write every day, 3 times a week I do it, and I am going to use the PR30 on next week's episodes. I just wanted to tell everybody. So
nice. Right
now I'm using the mic I've been using for about, I don't even know, 9 months now, a year. It's the Rode NT1. It's a condenser mic. But next week, the PR30. So I didn't have time to set it up for this week, Michelle. But next week, I'll rock the PR30.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's actually what I'm using today, too.
Oh, really? Well, wait. When I saw you on video, it was a black microphone, though.
Yeah.
Is that like a special Black Stallion model?
No. So we just are rolling out the PR30 and the PR40 in an all black model.
Ooh.
So by the time this airs, they will be available.
Okay. Yeah, this will air in 2 weeks, actually. So
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. There you go. Hype in the chat for the black Heil microphones. Okay. So, Michelle, let's just go through real quick your setup. So we do a speed round on the show.
Sure.
So just like literally within 30 or 60 seconds, just take us through your signal change, starting with your mic, what it's plugged into, how it goes into your computer, and then even quickly just sort of overview your post-production, like what software you use, stuff like that.
Okay, so today I'm using a PR30. I think when I sent you my picture of my studio setup, who knows what I had in front of me, I regularly have 9 microphones on my desk. I use as many as 4 at once in a stream.
Man!
So that's fun and not technically challenging at all. Well, since, the pandemic, we've had to do a lot of mic demos the way we would at trade shows. And we're just doing that stuff sort of virtually now. So, depending on who I'm talking to, I'm talking through like fancy shiny mics or, handheld mics that we're introducing for live sound industry or just whatever. So, then after that, I will say too, I use a pop screen of some sort. I'm a bad P-popper, so gotta have one of those. I love the BSW Re-pop fits perfectly on the 40 or the 30. It's also a great training tool if you have clients who are not familiar with using a microphone. Have them stick their chin or their nose on it, depending on how they position their mic, and it sort of keeps you on your mic. Just that extra layer of security to make sure your sound is really good. I'm running into an Allen and Heath Z10 today. I've been using this a lot because it's what we use at our trade shows, and I can run several mics into it.
Right.
No additional preamps on that, no pre-processing. So from there, I have 2 mic lines that run into my Sony HD camera, and that is running through a Camlink 4K through an HDMI cable into my computer. So a little bit complicated. My whole setup sort of beginning of pandemic was definitely just a straight podcasting setup.
Right.
It's now shifted into a live streaming thing. I do those at least once a week, often more.
Right.
So definitely love when I can do a podcast and just sort of chill out in the sweatpants
Right, exactly.
for a session. Yeah.
Okay, so it runs through the cam link, and then that's how it goes into the computer.
Yeah. And today I'm actually rocking some Ultimate Ears in-ear monitors because I have the drummer extension cable, so it can actually reach to my monitor, which was the sort of workaround we had to get into today to eliminate some audio issues with the Z10.
Okay, so you're using a drummer extension cable for your in-ear monitors. And so what kind of computer are you using? And then what software, how are you doing post-production, stuff like that?
So post-production, I am one of those people that thoroughly believes that if you can hire somebody to do your post-production that's better than you probably should.
Right.
That being said, this is funny because a lot of people ask me oh, what DAW do you recommend? And I'm like, I don't love any of the DAWs that I've used. I'm also a graphic designer and I don't love Photoshop. So, but it's the tool I have to use.
Right.
So most of the time I'm using Audition because I have it. I've used Logic, I've used Audacity, I've used GarageBand. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm using now is just Audition because I've got it.
Right.
That's not a great endorsement, but yeah.
All right, we'll talk about Audition because even though you're sort of playing it off like you're using it because you have it, but it is a pretty good DAW, and right?
It is. It's one of those things, though. I think with all the Creative Cloud products, there's a lot that I like. They like to change things in their updates. As somebody who's been using Photoshop for 25 years now, please stop. Just stop. Yeah. So one time you'd be like, okay, I'm good, I'm rocking it. And then they change something major when you go back in and it automatically updates because it's the cloud-based thing. So it's not like you're really given any warning too. So that's kind of, I would say that's probably one of my negatives for any of the Adobe stuff is just the auto updates. And then it's if I'm going to use a program, I don't want to watch a tutorial video on a program that I've been using in order to know how to use it again. So,
Yeah, I mean, having the choice to update or not would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And are you able to go back to a previous version or no?
I don't think you are.
Okay.
I mean, there might be a way. I've never tried it because you might as well learn to do it. There's probably other things that you're going to like about the update, even if there's a couple things that you don't. So I try to just get with the program, but it's usually inconvenient.
That's difficult. There's a lot of, pulling hair out and gnashing of teeth. And, that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah. Most of the post-production right now, though, we have a large community of audio engineers that are very, very talented people that are out of work currently. So when I can send a job their way, I'm absolutely going to do that right now. So no post-production for me at the current moment because I'm really trying to help support those friends that are struggling being out of work for the live sound industry.
Right. But I mean, over the years, you've done plenty of your own post-production, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm doing something quick, then I just do it myself.
Right.
Sort of getting into the video editing stuff too, which is so much harder because you can see the mouth moving.
Yeah. Yeah, video. I always say that video production really limits what you can do with the audio.
It does. It really does. And when I first started doing it, I was like, oh, can I just go back to podcast audio?
Exactly.
Like once you get into it and you can just see stuff, you can see a mouth noise or something like that. It's you fly through post-production like that.
Yeah, I get, and there's ways to do it though, but it is more time consuming and you have to be very careful. And I was just talking to someone about this, one of my students, about how when you do video, like when you do audio only, you can slide things around, cut stuff out. You can do anything. Like if two people talk over each other, you can literally separate that.
Yeah.
But with video, you can't do any of that. None.
No. Even if you've done like multi-channel recording, it doesn't matter because the other person's mouth is moving. Maybe start setting up multiple cameras. So you just like record one person and the next person. Now that we all have to be 6 feet apart, this could totally work, actually. I think I'm coming up with something right now.
Yeah. Or maybe even do some overdubs or some Foley or something.
Exactly. Just record the audio stuff after and just overdub the whole thing.
That's right. I love that.
I'm loving this idea.
All right. So does Heil have its own podcast right now or no?
So we did a podcast. I just looked up this morning because I was like, when did we do that? We did a podcast in 2016. We did a year-long show for our 50th anniversary, and it's called 50 Years of Maximum Rock and Roll with Bob Heil. And not to brag on myself because it was my first podcast I ever did, it's a phenomenal podcast. I mean, I had at my disposal like a professional host to work with who, works at iHeartRadio. He's Steve Harvey's producer. He's incredible. He's a professional voiceover guy. You might have met him at shows, Dave Hines. We bring him to podcast shows because he's so much fun. And for the 50th anniversary of Heil Sound, I was like, we have to do something really cool for a company that's, this historic.
Right.
And I think at the time when I decided to pitch this, we were actually at NAB the year it co-hosted with NMX show.
Oh.
And, I was like, what am I going to do? How do I do something that's worthy of this? And I was doing a lot of podcast interviews and we were talking to a lot of podcasters. And I just asked Bob, would you do a podcast? Because people have asked him over the years so many times, would you write a book? And he always said no. And I thought for sure he was going to shoot me down. And he just immediately, without any hesitation, said yes. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I have to make a podcast.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, that's okay. We know how to record. We have, that's no problem.
Right.
Like most people's hurdle in their barrier of entry to podcasting is all the equipment and everything. And to us, that was a no-brainer. And that was really simple. So we quickly and easily produced 6 episodes. And we were going to release like one a month because we knew we were going to do it for like the entire year. And we sort of batched the first 6 and Bob was really on board. And then when we started recording the later episodes, I think he was just kind of getting bored of it. And so, I would have my pre-call with our host and I'm like, this is what we're going to talk about on this episode. And we had like story themes and stuff like that,
right.
Even though these were Bob's personal stories of being the sound guy for the Grateful Dead and the Who. I knew a lot of the stories from knowing him for, almost 20 years at that point. And he would sometimes retell the stories the way he had told me the first time in like a pre-interview. And sometimes like he just wouldn't be in the mood. Or he would go off on a rant about like 11 ply plywood that they imported from some other country to make speaker cabinets. And I'm like, what does this have to do with Jimi Hendrix setting his guitar on fire? So the second half of the show or the second half of the series, we Frankensteined every single episode.
Oh.
And some of those episodes, which are only like 45 minutes to an hour, took upwards of 10 hours to edit and post-production.
Oh, wow.
Because we would just slice them up and then I would send new questions to our host to sort of segue between everything. And when you listen to the podcast, you can't tell at all that that's how we did it. But that was what we had to do. And it was, for that to be your first ever podcast in terms of like a post-production lift, it was a heavy one.
Wow.
Just in terms of getting the content reorganized.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, that production technique that you used, where in the recording of the episode, it was all kind of crazy and all over the place. And then in post-production, you crafted different questions and then re-recorded those questions and then edited them into the original recording, right?
Yeah.
And to do that seamlessly how did you do it so that it was seamless?
Well, I worked with professionals. That's the short answer.
Okay.
I knew what the answers were going to be, and I knew what the story flow of the episode was going to be. So then we would write the questions, and I would send the audio back to Dave that he was going to be recording around. So Dave, the host, would be able to hear what Bob had just said. He would be able to record his segment, and then he would be able to hear what was coming up next, the answer. So he was given context always, and that allowed him to give more like natural reactions in his voiceover.
Right.
You know, like to be able to say something like when Bob talks about Jimi Hendrix setting his guitar on fire in front of him, like Bob literally had no idea who Jimi Hendrix was or that he did this. And back then, the front of house mixer was against the stage.
Oh.
So now we go to concerts and the mixer's like in the middle of the crowd. Well, back then it was right next to the stage.
Right.
So Jimi Hendrix like sets his guitar on fire in front of Bob. And, you know, like you have to be able to respond to that and then ask the new question in a way that sounds genuine. And Dave's a professional, so, you know, it helped that we would send him all the other audio files to work around. But yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah. The context matters a lot because like you could script a question, but like maybe in the guest's previous answer, they're like, the guest ended their answers by saying, yeah, you know, and my dog died and it was really sad. And then if the host doesn't hear that and they're just reading the next question, they could be like, "Oh, that's great. That's just great. Okay, so next question." You know, like the host could come in with an entirely wrong reaction to what was just said. So having the context of the before the question and after is 100% necessary, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because we've sort of adapted how we shoot videos now to do a similar thing. We will record like tests and reorganize the shoot and go, okay, this is what we want to do first, second, third. This is how this flows better. And then we'll reshoot the whole thing like in a much more professional way. I love kind of doing first drafts, and I'm a huge post-production person. Like having to adapt to doing stuff live all the time in COVID has been like nerve-wracking for me. Like I am a, can we edit it in post-production, like make it look polished and perfect kind of person, because I like the process of doing that. And as long as I have other people that are willing to go along with my madness, it's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So I want to ask you about Bob Heil real quick, and then we're actually going to go through all your equipment setup and everything. We're going to get in much greater detail. I want to know about, you know, the microphones that you're using and the mixer and everything. We're going to step through everything one by one. But before that, can you just tell us about Bob Heil, like where he came from and then why he started Heil Sound and started making these microphones real quick?
Yeah, Heil Sound's a really interesting company. It's been a lot of different things over the years. So it hasn't always been a microphone company. I've been working for the company for 16 years. And in the time that I've been there, the microphone business has been built. So when I started, we had 3 microphones. We had the 40, the 30, and the PR30, and nothing else. We didn't even have a website. So I've really been there since the beginning for the microphone line. But when the business started in the 60s, it was a music store. And it was a music store the way we know music stores now, but at the time, it was the first one like it. So you could go into, it was called Ye Olde Music. And, it was called Ye Olde Music Shoppe. And you could go in and you could try out a guitar and take it home with you. And they had like 10 Fender guitars or 10 Les Pauls. And now that's how like every music store is. But back then, before, they only had like floor samples, and then you would have to order a guitar and you would have to wait for it to come in, and then you could get it.
I see.
So that was sort of the model prior to Ye Olde Music Shoppe. So what ended up happening is these rock and roll musicians would fly like 747s into cornfields and buy a whole bunch of gear from Heil Sound and fly back out, because we're in Southern Illinois. And we're just outside of St. Louis. And the story is that when the Grateful Dead got their gear confiscated in New Orleans, they were en route to St. Louis. And when they got to St. Louis, they had no gear to do their show.
Oops.
No PA. And Bob he's such a pack rat, which is amazing if you're somebody like me who likes to like dig through old photos and all sorts of stuff like that. But he had all these Leslie speaker cabinets, which are gigantic speakers for organs.
Right.
And they sound incredible on a live soundstage, like to amp guitars and things like that. And so the Grateful Dead had no PA, and they called Bob and said, hey, can you bring all those giant Leslie speakers over here? And he did. And the story goes that they opened suitcase after suitcase of money in front of him and said, will you go with us? And he kept saying no until one of his roadies stepped up and went, I can go with the Grateful Dead. So that's kind of how Heil Sound entered the world of pro audio initially. And this was obviously a very long time ago. And it was actually Jerry Garcia that named the company Heil Sound, because he said Ye Olde Music Shoppe was stupid and he couldn't remember it. So we asked Bob, what's your last name? And he said Heil. And he said, just call it Heil Sound.
Wow.
And so we have tons of really cool stories like that in that podcast that we did. And it's really interesting to work for a company that has a history like that. It's like when we went to do the podcast, it was one of those things. It's like no pressure to get this 50-year-old story right, for the company. But yeah, it's just such a fascinating life that Bob lived. And he ended up, for a period of time being the sound guy for the Grateful Dead and the Who and all these like ZZ Top before, when they were like an opening band for REO Speedwagon. So it's just a neat company, and everything that Bob has done in terms of innovation in the live sound industry has been in response to artist requests.
Right.
Like he developed the talk box because Joe Walsh wanted to use one live. And it was a device that was roughly based on World War II fighter pilot microphones. So they had these microphones that were basically contact elements. I don't know if you are familiar with that. So it's a very sensitive element, and it's placed against something in order to transmit sound. It doesn't, like now, the elements that we use, which are either like dynamic or condensers, you can sit away from them to varying degrees of distance and they will still pick up the audio. Contact elements have to be right up against an audio source. They're actually not that hard to build. Right. My husband built one and attached them to like some drums many years ago. So that's what it was sort of loosely based off of. And Joe wanted this guitar effect, and through various artists, they could actually make the guitar sound like it was talking. And so that was sort of the impetus of the talk box. And every product that we make is sort of like that. We just sort of listen to our customers and see, what their pain points are and what their unique circumstances are in how they use microphones or various kinds of audio equipment, and try to help them out as best we can. Right.
Wow. That's amazing. And when I saw Bob speak at Podcast Movement a few years ago, he was demonstrating with the PR40 how much of the sound is rejected from the rear. And he was saying that 100% is rejected from the rear. So was it his experience with live sound that he tried to create a mic that rejected all the sound except for from the front?
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. Bob, when he would work here locally, he was often a guest on KMOX, which is our local AM radio station. And so he also has a broadcast background. And one of the necessities for microphones in a broadcast studio setting is that it not pick up bleed from the other hosts. And that was definitely sort of the starting point for the PR40. But when we started building microphones for the live sound industry, it was important that if you mic'd a drum set, that you could control the level of the cymbal, even though the cymbal was right next to the snare drum, and not get that bleed. So you could really get a studio quality sound in a live sound environment without a lot of bleed.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, Bob has had quite a career, and what's he up to these days?
Well, he's semi-retired these days. He's a ham radio enthusiast, so he spends a lot of time doing that stuff. I think if it weren't COVID, he would probably be traveling around going to ham shows a lot. That's kind of what he was doing before all this happened.
Oh, I see.
Bob just turned 80.
80?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's chilling. That's the answer. He's just relaxing.
Yeah. He's living the life, man. He does what he wants, which for the most part is just the ham radio stuff. And it's really rewarding that he's super proud of us, the sort of, what he sees as the next generation of Heil Sound,
right,
which is very gratifying, having worked for a company for this long and having seen an entire division of the company sort of grow up around you.
Right.
He very much lets us take the ball and run with the Pro line. And, we just launched the PR37 microphone, and it's kind of the same story as everything else that we've made. We were trying to make a incredibly rugged yet super clear and acoustically transparent dynamic microphone to be used on live sound stages. And I'm so ready for, live concerts to be back on a personal level, but on a professional level, like hearing these microphones through a PA is like, that's what they were designed for.
Right.
And so not having that piece of the market segment right now is infuriating, but it's one of those things, like, I'm confident it's going to come back. It's probably going to look a little different initially, but as somebody who's been going to concerts since I was like 15 years old, it's crazy.
Right. That you can't go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started at Heil, they had the PR40 and the 30 and the 20, and you started with Heil in 2004. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so now, how many microphones does Heil offer?
Oh, man.
Oh.
Well,
oops.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 7 on my desk.
Okay.
And I don't have any drum mics on my desk.
All right. So it's probably like, what, 15, 20 mics or something?
Yeah. Probably somewhere in that range. And we make microphones for a variety of applications too. And we make I have multiple versions of microphones on my desk, right? Like we make 3 different colors of the PR40, and then you can do like custom shop stuff. So a lot of times I like to sport some custom mics.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I can.
Yeah. And so for the podcasting audience and for podcast producers and everything, pretty much most people who've been in the podcasting space for at least a few years, they know the Heil PR40, right? It seems like everyone knows that mic.
Yeah.
But the PR30 is much less well known, but it's a really great mic. Can you just describe the differences between the 40 and the 30?
So it's my go-to for podcasting.
The 30.
The 30 is, yeah.
Okay.
And that surprises a lot of people. I think the only time you'll see me using a 40 is when our PR guy makes me. For my voice, the 30 just sounds more like me. It's got a little more mid-range presence and a little less low-end prominence. If you're going for that traditional broadcast sound, the 40 is going to be, that's going to be your baby. If you want to sound closer to how you sound and you have not quite a deep voice, like especially a lot of women, although some women sound better on a 40, it's just kind of individual differences, which makes not being able to go to trade shows right now so difficult. But yeah, the 30 has a really nice, natural, articulate sound. One of the benefits of these microphones development being over like cross applications, so developed with broadcast in mind and also developed with like live sound applications, is, you're shooting for something that is going to have like an articulate tom sound or a nice articulate guitar tone, but also like clear speech patterns.
Right.
So it's got that really nice like rise in the frequency response around the 2 to 5 kilohertz range. It's just a nice natural mic.
Right.
And it's one of those things that like I've gone back and forth with our office because there's a price difference between the 30 and the 40. It's only because one costs us less to make. But people don't understand that, and they see the lower price tag on a 30 and they think it's not as good a mic. Which is so crazy.
Right.
I'm like, can we just charge the same for both microphones? They're like, well, that's not how our margins work. I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
Because it's a marketing problem, right?
Right.
They see the lower price tag and they think it's not as good. It's just like how the pricing structure is.
Right.
Like, from the powers that be.
Wow. So I just updated the plan for next week's episode, everybody. Not only am I going to use the PR30 on next week's episode, I'm also going to use the 40. I'm going to compare them in the episode.
I love it. I love that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to hear on your voice too, because you don't have a particularly bassy voice.
Nope.
I'm going to bet that the 30 is going to be the ticket for you, but we'll have to wait and see.
Wait, hold on, Michelle. I don't have a bassy voice. What are you
No.
talking about? I don't have a bassy voice. Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did that sound good or no? I'm kidding, obviously.
It sounds perfect with that laugh right after.
Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm such a dummy I am. All right, anyway. All right, so that's the difference between the 30 and the 40, which you'll hear next week. Everyone tune in next week. So let's go through what you talked about. You're using a PR30 right now, and it's a black one. And you're using this Allen and Heath mixer. It's called the Z10. And before we started recording, I was actually hearing feedback of my voice. So somehow my voice was going through your mixer and then coming back to me, and which of course is unacceptable. I mean, you can't, that means it would record both of our voices on the same track with me being delayed. And
Right.
So anyway, we tried to figure that out for a little while. It's a USB mixer. What else can you tell us about your Z10?
So on my Z10, I don't use any EQ. Obviously don't use any effects, but I'm just using the first mic channel right now. I've got everything sort of set to nada since we were having some issues with that. But a lot of times I'm using multiple channels and multiple microphones, especially when I'm doing like live stuff where I need to show people the differences between how the mics sound. You'll probably have to do something similar to do your AB of the 40 and 30.
Right.
So there are there's like a solo button.
Okay.
At the very bottom that you can do.
So you have 4 mic inputs on the mixer, correct? Mm-hmm. So you can plug in all 4 mics, and then you just basically mute 3 of them and listen to one, and then you mute a different one, listen to another one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't actually have to mute them. So this is kind of the beauty of these dynamic microphones, is I can place 4 of these microphones hot in front of me, and it will only pick up the one I'm talking into. I know.
I'm sure there must be some bleed, but maybe it's negligible, right?
I keep my gain fairly low. We get a lot of calls from people. They're like, my microphone, I've got my gain all the way up. And I'm like, how far away from your mic are you sitting? And they're like, 6 feet away. I'm like, it's not how these are designed to work. So I'm generally like right up on my mic, about 2 inches away, because, I'm like everybody else. I'm working from home. I have a kiddo that's, usually like running around or having lunch, just into little kid shenanigans.
Right.
Or my neighbor who's retired and has nothing to do, and no joke, mows his lawn like every other day. Lawnmower outside the window. Like, I went to do something just 2 days ago, and I'm like, how can he be mowing the leaves again?
I just thought of the dumbest idea. You could go to him and say, look, our company, Heil Sound, wants to sponsor your lawn mowing, Mondays only lawn mowing. That's it.
No, it's great though, because you talked about Bob doing that rejection demo. They really do that. And it gives me the confidence to know, like, it annoys me to be able to hear the mower every time I'm trying to do a live stream, but other people can't hear it. You
should go out there and say, ask your neighbor, can I walk beside you with my Heil PR40 face the opposite direction? Let's see how much rejection we get.
I actually recorded one of the podcast episodes for the Heil Sound podcast at the NAMM show in our booth.
Oh.
Yeah.
And could you hear the crowd, or could you hear the space?
We actually had to turn up the gain to get more crowd noise.
More, right.
Because I was like, we're listening to it through headphones, and I was like, we can't do this and say recorded at NAMM. It doesn't sound like that. Like, you couldn't hear like the crowd noise. But what I like to do in situations like that is have like an ambient track. So just plug in an extra microphone, record that stuff, and then be able to mix it in post-production at whatever level you want, so that your main audio tracks are not trying to compete with the background noise. So, if you want it to sound like you're in a coffee shop all the time, even though you can't go to a coffee shop and sit and sip coffee, just go to a coffee shop and record the coffee shop noise and just add it as another track into your show.
Yeah, I should do that on my show sometime. Like, come up with or figure out a cool place to record some, like the beach, like waves crashing on the beach.
Yeah. We did that for when I had the podcasting studio, we had a meditation podcast that I worked on, and we would record breathing tracks. So we would record like all over audio, and then we would record breathing tracks, and then we would record like this little meditation bowl that she would play, and then we would mix all of it together in post-production.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very soothing. Like, we would sit there like working on the episode after she left, and like we would all just be so quiet in the studio, like me and the audio engineer, and we'd just be like, wow, are you really chill right now? Because I'm really chill right now.
Yeah, meditation is awesome. I do 2 live streams a week. We meditate. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, there you go. Include a breath track.
Actually, we broadcast, we stream 2 meditation sessions a week, but I don't have a microphone on at all. Like, we just literally meditate, and then we wave goodbye and then turn off the stream.
Yeah. It was amazing what it was like there was a big difference in having the breath track. So what we did was we would just like gain up the microphone a lot, so you would get that breathing sound. But we did it kind of the same way we did with that Heil Sound podcast. So we recorded her audio, and then we played it back through her ears so she could hear when she was supposed to be breathing with the words she was saying.
Oh, wow.
So then we would just lay the audio on top of it.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it really made a cool effect. And it was really, really soothing and very effective as a way to mix in post-production for that particular show.
And also very subtle. I mean, the breathing itself, you must have kept that at a very low volume in the mix, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's sort of like one of those things, especially if you're trying to do something mindful like that. It can help you just sort of bring your focus back to that area, especially in like moments where it's sort of quiet.
Right. Okay, well, let's move on. So you're using your Sony HD camera. Let's skip over the video aspect here, but
Sure.
You did say that now that you're home and COVID, like, you're joining all these, video streams and doing webinars and all that, which is awesome. But you mentioned you have these in-ear monitors. Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Are they... Yeah, tell us about your in-ear monitors. Did you say they were called Ultimate Ears?
Yeah, so these are like professional monitor in-ears. I'm not a huge fan of over-the-ear headphones. We make headphones, and usually when I do a video thing, I'll wear the Heil Sound headphones. But I prefer the in-ears, and these are they're the Ultimate Ears Capital Studio Reference headphones. And these in-ear monitors, okay, I'll just level with you. They gave them to me. I would never buy these.
Okay.
if you can afford to get these, I highly recommend them. They sound incredible. I think they're like $2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know they're custom molded to your ear, or no?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
Yeah. They're custom molded to my ears. This is the benefits of working in the industry is, people send you incredible, incredible gear. So yeah, lots of toys.
Well, I want to know all about how they do that. How did they custom mold it to your ear? Did they come to your house and like pour something in there?
Okay, so they have a really cool process, actually. They mapped them when I was at the NAMM show. And they do it, they have these like devices that they put in your ear. They don't like do, so I've had custom earplugs for years and years and years now because I go to so many shows and my hearing is so important to me. Right. Every time I go to a concert, I'm using like my custom earplugs.
That's great.
And those, they injected like this like weird putty weirdness into your ear, which is a very strange feeling. Okay. And they molded them off of that. But with Ultimate Ears, they do this mapping thing and they just put this little device in your ear and slowly pull it out and it maps your ear and they fit perfectly. Huh. It's like the craziest thing. But yeah, if you can get a hold of like some really nice in-ear monitors or, earbuds, if you're somebody like me that just kind of can't handle long periods of time with the headphones over the ears, right. Especially when I was actively doing post-production editing. Like even if it was just content-wise, you would spend hours upon hours listening. And I don't know if I have like weird ear cartilage or something, but it's just, they're always very uncomfortable to me. So that's kind of why I wear the in-ear monitors.
Right. And how about like the playback, the frequency response of the playback? Is that somehow, because, different speakers and different headphones, they play back audio differently. And some of them, like these new headphones, like the Bose or the Beats, I think the Beats is the one that's like, it just pumps up the low end and pumps up the high end and all that. So, and other, crazy people like me who are mixing, we want our monitors to be flat in terms of frequency.
Right.
How would you describe your Ultimate Ears?
These are so flat. So they're reference studio monitor earphones, and
Got it.
That's like, if you've never shopped for something like that, that's the word you're looking for.
Reference.
Is reference.
Got it.
Yeah. That means it's going to be exactly what is going in the board is coming out.
Got it.
And they still sound fantastic. Like if I listen to music through them, it sounds incredible. They're so detailed. When a video is like, please wear headphones to listen to this. Right. This is what they mean, like reference, not something like the Beats headphones that are going to have that big bass boost to them.
And what kind of connector is on the other end of those? Is it a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or multi?
So it's got a 1/4 inch and it's got an 1/8 or it's an 1/8 inch, but it's got a 1/4 inch adapter.
Got it.
And I will say that the Heil Sound headphones that I use on occasion too have a phase reversal switch. So if you're somebody that doesn't mind over the ear headphones and spends a lot of time recording, that phase reversal switch is a cool little toy. So if you flip it out of phase, it will actually move the audio signal from one ear to the other. And at first when you hear it, it's really weird because you're like, wow, it's only coming through one side. But you sort of get used to it. It's sort of like putting on an eye patch. At first you notice it, and then within, a few minutes, your brain just adjusts for it. And so it cuts down on listener fatigue. We actually have a lot of people that work in live sound that like them because they can put the headphones on, and by flipping the phase reversal, like their brain can recognize what is the mixer sound versus what's coming through the live PA. So it's kind of a neat little thing.
Wow.
That you don't see it a lot either, but that's definitely like a studio quality headphone thing that we do.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that and never tried it, obviously. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
What model headphones, Heil headphones are they?
It's the Pro Set 3.
Interesting. And what do they go for?
I think they're 109.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. I think a lot of people think our products, because people talk so highly about our products, I think they think they're way more expensive than they really are.
Right.
Like the PR30 is $250.
Right.
So, it's like, it's just, it's the Heil PR40 and It's not it's not as crazy as you might think.
That is cool. Yeah, there's one of these days I'm gonna get some real in-ear monitors and either spend that much money or have somebody give them to. Well, no one will probably give them to me, but I'll buy them. I don't mind buying things. I don't mind investing in cool stuff if I can.
Yeah, you gotta get the gear if you do it. If you do this all the time, like I've had to level up the video stuff for us. We always had the audio stuff, but the video stuff I've had to level up even in the last couple of years. And we do everything like I do stuff like the super complicated way all the time. When we record video stuff in normal situations, I record the audio stuff separately.
Right.
So I'll record like through a Zoom H6, and then we'll use the camera audio to sync up audio tracks later.
Right.
But we always record the audio separately because it has to be just perfect.
Right. Right. Yeah, you can have a mic closer to you rather than the camera mic. Yeah. Wow. So, all right, we talked earlier about Adobe Audition a little bit, but in terms of like, and I know you might not do a ton of post-production in there over the past recent times, but when you go to process sound, like EQ and compression and all that, like how do you do that? And what are your, like, how do you view EQ and compression and how do you use those things?
So I typically don't do, well, okay, you have to understand, I don't use any EQ or compression because the point of our videos or podcasts is to let you hear our microphones. So it's very disingenuous if I'm running a bunch of EQ or post-processing when I'm telling you, like, listen to how amazing this microphone sounds. Like, that would be pretty cheesy of me.
I didn't even think of that. Wow.
Yeah, no. So we don't ever do any of that. Everything you hear in our videos or our podcasts is just clean audio, no EQ, no pre-processing, no post-processing, nada.
Yeah, that makes your microphone technique way more important.
Yes. And it's one of the things that we talk to people about a lot, because a lot of times when people think they're having technical issues with their mixer or their microphone, they're actually having bad microphone technique problems.
Right? Yeah, and so I talk about mic technique all the time because everyone they have problems and they want to know why, and so often just using good mic technique will solve the problem. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
We get those phone calls on a regular basis and we're like, how are you talking into your microphone? My favorite is we're talking into the side of the microphone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like they think it's like a Blue Yeti and it's supposed to be pointing up.
Right. And they come literally with a piece of paper wrapped around them that says this microphone, you talk into the end of it.
Oh.
But
okay.
But you know how much people read the packaging that comes with their product. They actually have to physically take it off the microphone to use it wrong.
Right. Yeah, well, okay. It's learning. We're all learning at our own pace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Oh man, and that just when you talk into the wrong side of the mic, there's
no forgiving that.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't sound good. Like it's not the mic is not able to pick up all the frequencies that it needs to pick up. It usually sounds very dull and weird, almost phasey sometimes, right?
Well, our microphones don't even work like at all. That's the point of them, is to not pick up audio out of the side and the back. So it makes people think that their microphone doesn't work.
Well, if you talk into the side of a PR40 or PR30, it'll still pick up some of that. Maybe from the back it rejects most of it or all of it, but
yeah, from the side what you're going to hear is basically
low mids.
The same thing. Well, not even that really. It's almost like somebody talking from across the room.
Okay.
That's kind of how it sounds.
Right. Like a weird.
You'll kind of hear it, but it's like, is that person across the room?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like right up on the outside of it.
Right. Well, this has been fascinating. I mean, we could sit here and talk all day and go really, really deep, but this has been great, Michelle. I'm so happy you could join the show. Is there anything else we should touch on before we wrap it?
I don't think so. I'm thrilled to finally be on your show. We do so many speaking things where I feel like you and I always talk back to back.
Oh, yeah.
We share so many of the same, like, talking points of, microphone technique and equipment and, stuff like that. So it's either you are the setup guy for me or I'm the setup guy for you.
That was great. The last time it happened, you were talking first, then I came on and I was like, hey, and I was shouting you out in my talk. That was great.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I even mentioned you in my talk. I was like, I saw you were coming up next and I was like, oh, well, Chris is going to cover this and this and this.
That's right.
So I'll just plug his talk so people stay on here, because I think somebody in my talk asked me about like pre-processing or post-processing. And, obviously I don't use that, but my philosophy is always post-processing because you can't take out what you didn't have in the first place.
Right.
So, I always want the full scope of my audio, and you can always change it after the fact. But if you have tweaked the audio too much going in, you're kind of, stuck and limited with where you can go from there.
Yeah.
Especially when people are new to this, you can buy all the gear you want. It does not mean you're going to know how to use it.
Right.
So like add one thing at a time, start simple. And people that are working with, I think one of the biggest things I learned in having my own podcast studio was how to work with clients. And so many people right now, especially, post-production engineers are having to work with clients that are a CEO of a company and they have never even used a microphone.
Right.
Just practice with those people. Make them practice. We used to just like every time we had a meeting with a client, you had to sit behind the microphone and practice.
Right.
If you want their show to sound good, the best way to reflect your work is to have them make really good shows. And the best way to do that is to get them to practice.
Right.
I liken it to like if, somebody went out and took a bunch of blurry pictures, would you post them on your Instagram account?
Right.
No. Like then why are you, publishing really crappy audio and thinking that that's okay? Right. It's just there's no excuse for it now either because it's like everybody's doing this stuff.
Right.
So just get yourself a microphone, learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Stop publishing the first thing you record, please.
Yeah, that reminds me. I have a client now who we record one episode a month, and it's a fairly new client, and every time we connect, it's like I give the reminders of what to do, what not to do, but because we only do it once a month, the host usually forgets what I said, and then they make a bunch of noise and they do all this wrong stuff. And it's to the point now where, I can only mention it so many times before I become the annoying person, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So now I don't care. It's like if you want to bump the table and move around and click pens and slap paper on the desk, then fine, just do it. It's your show. What am I going to do?
So I will give you one of my tips for working with clients like that. The pop screen that I mentioned I was using. So I have them, obviously we're using dynamic mics that are meant to be close talked. If you have them either put their chin on it, depending on how they're positioned, or their nose. And if they learn to not remove their nose or their chin from the pop screen, then they always know that they're on their mic. And the other biggest thing that I can say is make your podcasters wear headphones. And ironically, we had to, on occasion, like fight with Bob about this because he would just be like, he's so like ADD, everything he does, he's going like his brain's going 90 miles a minute. And we would have to remind him, like, put headphones on because he would just be talking into his mic and then it's like, ooh, shiny. And he looks away and he keeps talking while he's looking away. Right. But if he has his headphones on, he won't do that because he can hear himself. So, just keeping those clients mindful of their own audio. I have occasionally sent bad audio to clients and be like, this is what we're working with here, kids. This is the problem.
Right.
But I also had clients that had hired me specifically to make them sound like professionals.
Right.
So they were willing to take that feedback. And I think, maybe just approaching some of your clients with a little bit of tough love is not a bad thing because the bar is getting raised higher and higher out there.
Right.
Everybody's got a podcast or a live stream now. So you can't just jump out there and do whatever.
There's a female singer. She's an artist. She plays guitar and sings, and she's been doing it for like 30 years, and she's had major label record deals. And I've seen her this year on Facebook doing Facebook Lives. She's sitting literally 10 feet from the camera with no microphone, and she's playing an acoustic guitar and just singing in the room. And it is like, it's the worst sounding audio I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And I'm like, you've done records on major labels.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? That's rough.
I know.
That's rough.
Sometimes you can't talk people out of their own bad ideas.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, everybody can go to heilsound.com. That's where all the Heil equipment is and everything is. I'll put the link in the show notes. Michelle, what else do we need to know about Heil Sound?
Oh, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give you, since most everybody here is going to be audio engineers, post-production people. If you are struggling getting your clients to understand their gear, I do have a video on our website at heilsound.com/microphones101 that is all about microphones. Deep dive, talking about condensers, dynamics, frequency response, polar pattern, gain, why they shouldn't try to use it as a volume knob. Everything that you've been trying to get your podcast clients to understand about microphones is covered in there. It's like a 20-minute long video, but it surely won't hurt a lot of people that need some help understanding their gear.
Oh, that's great. So it's heilsound.com/
Microphones 101.
Microphones 101. Okay, the link to that will also be in the show notes. Yeah. This is great. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And Michelle, if you could do one last thing, and I don't know if you were prepared for this, but at the end, we all like to yell really loud. We like to yell, sound great.
Okay.
So are you willing to literally... Yeah, well, actually, you said you have your baby sleeping in the next room.
I think I just heard him. He's awake, so I can do this.
Okay, so if you want to yell, you can. And everyone else in their cars and jogging and wherever you're listening, everyone yell, sound great. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Michelle Levitt from Heil Sound. This was great. And it's time to yell. All right, go, Michelle, go. Sound great! Yeah, baby. And you can play that part so well, but you're playing out on me now. You like to lose control where it's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react some empathy. You change your attitude where you say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. Gave up on me where some chance you gave me gave away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? Doesn't seem that long a time now. Things we did still hold their meaning. It doesn't mean it's still the same. You're pushing me
guess it hurts me now that you don't talk to me now that these worlds have split apart now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I